All right, so we're back in action for ZRL Race 2, and this week we're racing a points race on turf and surf. 25 kilometers. Looking at the course profile here, there are only 2 sprints that will count for points. Both of the sprints will have both FAL and FTS points, but both of them bring an interesting dynamic. The first one is the alley sprint, and it's right out of the gate. So I assume it's going to be like a 2-minute all-out effort to try and get some points on this sprint. And then the second sprint is at the top of a climb. So you're going to have to try and stay with that front group and also conserve some energy so that you can still sprint once you get to the top of this hard climb. So it should bring some interesting dynamics. I want to get into a little bit into how the actual points work for those of you that don't really know how these points work. So FAL points are first across the line. So it does not matter how fast you go through the sprint, it's just what place you are in when you cross that line. FTS points is fastest through the segment. So just fastest time through the segment. You could be in the middle of the pack, you could be way off the back, it doesn't matter. Just whoever has the fastest time through the segment. And then the big blue chunk that you see right here is actually the finish points. So those account for 58% of the points. So it is kind of a game of whether you want to try and get for some FAL points, shoot for FTS, or just go for the final points, or if you want to try and get optimized points in every single section. So let's get into the race and see how this goes. So as I expected, right out of the gate, everybody was pretty much sprinting to try and get good position for this first sprint. So kind of assumed it was going to be about a 2-minute all-in effort. My goal was to just kind of stay towards the front of this group and see if I could pick up as many FAL points as possible. I basically knew that I wouldn't have anything to get FTS, so just trying to pick up as much FAL points as possible. So coming into the sprint here, I was sitting about 6th wheel, which is pretty good, but I did know that some of these guys would come screaming past me once the sprint actually started. Keep an eye on these guys in the green jersey. They're a Russian team, and they've got some super strong guys on there. So I was able to come across the line in 9th for FAL. That gave us 12 points. Ben came across in 7th with 14 points and BP with 15 points. But 4 of those Russian dudes were in front of them. Super strong. So the next part of this race is pretty boring. My goal here was to just sit in and conserve as much energy as possible so that I could make sure to hang with these guys on the next group. There wasn't really too much action until about 10 kilometers in. One of these Russian guys went off the front and was able to open up a huge gap. I think he ended up getting 18 seconds on us at one point. But my thoughts there were that he's probably a little bit bigger dude, so we would hopefully catch him on the climb. And I wasn't going to put in any work to try to bridge to that, so just kind of sticking to my plan here, sit in, conserve, and try to save some for this climb coming up. So as we started going up this climb, I knew that I had a feather. I wasn't really 100% sure when I was going to use it. I've done this climb a couple times, but it's not super familiar to me. And we got about, a quarter way up this climb, and I was feeling pretty good. I thought that these guys would be lighting it up a little bit more than they were. So I decided to give my feather a go, and as soon as I popped it, I actually started just kind of opening up a little bit of a gap. I mean, I was definitely working hard, but I wasn't necessarily thinking that I was going to open up a gap. So there I just popped my feather, and as you can see, I'm doing 450 watts, but I didn't really think that I was going to get away like this, as I mentioned. Next thing I know, I opened up a 3-second gap, and that just kind of kept expanding. So I said, oh man, I'm committed now. So I just kind of buried myself and just went as deep as I could to try and stay away, because I knew at this point I could at least get second for FAL if I held them off. So coming up here towards the top of the climb now, you can see my little indicator on the bottom. I actually started catching up to this other guy, and that gave me a little bit of that extra push to see if I could try and catch up to him. So gave a little bit of an extra push here, but I just could not quite catch up to him. I think I got it within like 1 second, but he saw me coming and he took off. So I ended up getting second on FAL points. So I was pretty happy with that. I don't know if I've ever had a result where I could actually get away from the group and stay away like that. So on top of me getting second in the FAL, BP was actually able to get fourth in FAL as well. Ben got 7th. David got 12th. So we were stacking up some points. Taylor got 18th, and Rick and Dimitri also got points on that one too. So we got a bunch of points on that one. But those Russian guys were, up there in the top as well. So I'm going to speed it up here through the descent and across the flat section until we hit the next climb. There wasn't really much action here either. A couple people tried to break away, but I think that everybody was just kind of conserving their energy because they knew that this climb was coming up. So take note really quick, there's this pretty long climb up through the cave. I don't even know what to call this cave. And then there's actually a pretty long, flat, almost downhill section into the final sprint. So coming into this last climb here, I knew that it was a pretty long climb and there was a flat section at the very top, but I don't know if maybe I got a little bit overconfident because I somehow pulled off a miracle on the last climb. So I stayed with the pack most of this time, but towards the top I started kind of trying to push the pace a little bit, and I do wish that I would have just sat in and let everybody else kind of control the pace here so that I could conserve some energy for that flat spot at the top. So coming in with about 0.2 miles left, that's when everybody kind of started to pick it up, but my heart rate was already at 171, which for me is super high. So I just didn't really have anything left in the tank. I was able to give it a pretty good sprint here, but I definitely was not able to give it what I should have been able to do. So I ended up coming in 12th, which, overall isn't really terrible, but shoulda, coulda, woulda. I do wish I would have reserved a little bit of energy on that final climb so that I had a little bit more for the sprint. So I'm going to get a little bit into the results here. So looking at the final results here, the Russian team, the Urinals, ended up beating us 369 to 344. But if you look at those final points, we actually had quite a few more than them. So if we would have been able to get a little bit more in FAL and maybe FTS, we probably could have taken away the win. So I'm thinking that those guys are going to be our target for the rest of this series. So real quick, just looking here, BP just absolutely killed it. 82 points. Ben had 69. David 52. Taylor 40. Myself, I had 67, and Rick had 34. So we all really put in really good work, and it was a solid race, but we just got to figure out a way to beat those other guys. Just real quick, looking at the league table, same as today. Those guys won the TTT. We came in second today, so we're 2 points behind them. Maybe we can find a way to pull ahead of them in the next races coming up. Just one more thing really quick. If you look at these FAL points, you see BP got 15 on the first alley sprint. Ben got 14. I got 12. And then David got 5. And I think that's it from our team. On the Shisha sprint for the FAL, I was able to get second for 19 points. BP got 17 again, just BP stacking up the points. Ben got 14 points. David got 9. So we were stacking up the points, but those Russian guys were, on that first one, they had 4 guys ahead of all of us, just stacking up the points. And then in the FTS, BP got 2 points on the first sprint compared to 3 of their guys getting FTS points, and we didn't get any on that second one. So Those Russian guys are just super strong. Super fun race though. It's going to be really fun to try and strategize and see if we can figure out a way to get ahead of them in the next race.